Okay, well, welcome today to the next part of the Google certification path. And today's training session is on Google Sites. And Google Sites is, really, I catch myself saying this a lot. It is one of my favorite tools in Google, but I also love Google Slides. I love Google Forms. So really and truly, I'm not sure that, I guess I love most of Google. I don't need to stop saying that. But today we are focusing on Google Sites, and we're talking about those essentials that you need to know going into either just building sites, you're not interested in certification at all, and that's fine. This session stands alone. Or if you are doing this as part of the Google certification path, then this will touch on some of the essential information you need to know for testing. But also, too, we give you a task to do so that, well, really and truly, certification or not, if you use this task, it's going to give you an opportunity to practice, to actually put your hands on what I'm showing you today. Because of the nature of our online learning, we kind of got to set up more of an I do, you do situation. And so that's our plan. And for those of you that have already been to some of the former sessions, you already know how this all rolls out. If I happen to have anybody that's a first-time visitor, and I think at this point the odds are probably getting slim, I just realized it doesn't have the link. I just want to quickly show, if you are brand new, you have never been in any of our Google training sessions as part of this path to certification, you may get this slide deck here with this link, this bit.ly link. It is case sensitive. But if you have to write this down, it is bit.ly/path2gc1. So that is there for you to use. And those of you, probably most of you already have it. All right, let's dive in and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my Google Drive. And we are sitting here. And we're going to talk about how you, and for that matter, how your students get to Google Sites, in case you have not ever built a Google site before. So like most things and all things really, Google, to get to the different tools inside of Drive, you're going to go up to the Google Apps area, which we fondly call the waffle, the Google waffle, because it does kind of look like a waffle with the way it's lined out there with the squares. When you select the waffle, this is where you're going to find things like Classroom and Google Docs and so forth. And you may or may not have paid attention before, but you also have Google Sites here. So whether it's you or the students, and students do also have the ability to create a Google site, this is where you can locate it. Now, there is a direct link to Google Sites. It's sites.google.com. Frankly, just like anything else, if you did a Google search, and you search for, sorry, I had to click off to admit somebody. If you search for the term Google Sites, it's also going to bring it up as a hyperlink. So you don't even have to go through the waffle. If you want to, you can just literally type in Google Sites, and it's going to bring up the website for you. It'll give you a link, and you can click on it and enter. But I'm going to go ahead and access this through the waffle. So I'm going to select Sites. So if you have never built a Google site before, this is going to be blank. But as you can see, I've got a number of different sites, ones that are real live sites that are published that people can find, other sites that are kind of my practice templates and so forth. It's a real mixture. I'm just going to briefly, just 1 second, kind of pull up one of my sites. I do digital citizenship for the district, and I work with school building coordinators to help get them resources and other information. So I'm just going to give a sneak peek in case you haven't looked at Google Sites very often, and just show you that you really and truly, once you're ready, can really dress up your site. You can come in and add pages and graphics and videos. You can embed slide decks. You can embed Google Documents, a whole host of things, maps, you name it. There's a lot of things that you can put it into your page. These are actually little embedded Adobe Spark newsletters. So if you've ever thought about that, you can put parent newsletters and embed it if you're talking about a classroom website. But anyway, I just wanted to show you just kind of a little peek at a more finished product, because we're going to spend our time more on the how-tos. That's what our purpose is here today. So anyway, just wanted to let you see that. Let me go ahead and close it. We're going to go back into our Drive, and I'm just going to repeat what I did before. Remember, to go to Google Sites, you're going into the Google waffle. You're going to go down and find Google Sites and click on it. And now we're kind of back to, really, I guess you could call it a dashboard for sites. So if you look at your page, you may have noticed here in this corner that there is a plus sign and it says blank, and it is a blank site. So we're going to select the plus to create really a shell of our site. So here we are. We have the bare bones, and now it's up to us to build out this site. So the first thing we want to do is we want to give our site a name. And the thing about the Google site is title and name can be slightly different, or are really kind of slightly different. Your page title really is the home page. What is this home page where people are going to land? What are you going to name it? So in this case, I might name my page American Revolution. However, that's title, as I said. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, and you may see, and I'm kind of wiggling my mouse around for you, that this box appears and it says Untitled Site. So we haven't given our site a name. The title of this page, and really I think what a lot of people probably think of as the name of their site, really in general, is American Revolution, but it's truly a title. To name the actual site, do you want it to be called American Revolution? Or do you want some other thing like maybe your name or maybe a combination or whatever? So as you do that, and this, what's in that untitled site area, once we put that in, is also what's going to end up in that path or hyperlink for your site. So perhaps I call this American Revolution Sensor, okay? I click outside of it, and now I have named the actual entire site as far as hyperlinking and what's going to happen there. But my title says American Revolution. So as I'm here in the header, we have an opportunity to dress this up. You may have noticed that on the site that I showed you, is you can make it a very attractive background. So when I click in that area, you may have noticed here in the bottom kind of left-hand area of the header, we have a change image and a header type. So if we click on change image, you can upload an image that you have and make it a background for your header, or you can select an image. And when you opt for select an image, you could browse into your Google Drive to grab an image out of there, share drives, and so forth. So all of these things are places that you can go and snag an image for yourself, all right? So I'm going to go back. However, I want to point this out. I said Google Drive. You could bring in a hyperlink. If you have a link, a direct link to an image, you could do that. But I really do love the search feature. Now, when it comes in, when you click on and say you want to select a background image, they'll give you some options right here. So there's some fun and festive options down as you scroll down. If you click search, though, you get to go out and do a search for a Google image. So if I wanted something that was more American revolutionary, so to speak, in nature, I could go through looking for one of these items. I select the picture that I think I like. I'm going to go down to the select button below, and now it's going to place it in the background. Already, you can kind of see it's a little more of a polished product, looks a little more impressive. The header type is, you can make large banners and so forth. I personally don't like the large banner because I think it takes up an awful lot of room whenever you load it into a page. The banner is the default, really. You could do only the title, but honestly, who wants that? But you might. It just depends. I could see in a portfolio, perhaps, a student portfolio, maybe you have a certain way you want it to appear. But I'm going to be satisfied with what I have up here at the top. That's a good question. Honestly, Steve, I guess I haven't thought about it, but since Google is tying that into their Google site search and their image search, it must be giving credit for the copyright. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that. So I've got to believe, I've never thought about that, but I believe that has to be the case because these things can be published. They can be out there in the public. And so I don't think Google's going to tie that in and not have that be out there without rights to copyright, because you're using their engine to bring it in. So, but I will double check that, Steve, just out of curiosity now. So we have our American Revolution header, and so let's talk about what other content we can start adding to our site. Well, obviously, most of the time you're going to add text, and so you may have noticed over here there's a right sidebar in our site. We've been for the moment been living in this area with the header, with the title or the name of the entire site. We talked about title. But over here to the right is a sidebar. And the sidebar is really where you're going to be doing a lot of the things that are going to go on to your pages inside of your website. So there are 3 tabs here. There's Insert, there's a Pages tab, there's a Themes tab. We're going to stick with Insert, which is always the default. Whenever you look over, it's always landing on Insert. You're going to have to change it to one of those other tabs. But on the Insert, let's take a look first at the text. You see here it says text box. If I click here down below the header, nothing's happening because there is no text box, there's nothing there. So I have to go up and click on text box. That's one way to do it. And when I do that, it now gives me a box in which I can begin typing. You also see there's kind of a very simplified toolbar for you to use. And so let's pretend like this is an entire, I don't know, perhaps this could be a portfolio, or if you as teacher is trying to maybe just do a site that is all about the American Revolution, whatever your purpose might be. And for now, I'll just throw some text on here. Welcome to learning about the American Revolution. So I've added some text, and now I have text here on my page. Now I can click this text box again. I can obviously keep typing, I should say that. I can keep on typing and put a big old paragraph or something in there and so forth. So let's pretend like, though, for right now, that's all I want for some reason. I could go back up here and select and put in another text box, but I also can do this. If I take my cursor on the page and I double click really quickly 2 times, double click, you also kind of get this little handy little shortcut item here. You see right in the middle it says text. We also have images, upload, embed, and then from drive. Let's say I want to put another text box. If I click on the T, the double T, you notice I can get a text box there as well. So you have 2 options. You can bring the text box in through the sidebar. You can also bring the text box in through double clicking and bring out kind of that little shortcut area to be able to access the text box. And you know that the text box is on the page because you can see here it now says click to edit text. So I could add something like all right. So at this point, I have these 2 lines of text. So I want to show you something because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an image. And I'm going to leave these 2 lines of text alone for just a moment and come back. So let's say I'm now ready to put an image in. And so if you look up here on the sidebar to the right, you notice that images is one of our options. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click image. And it says upload or select. I'm going to go with select. You can upload from your computer. So if you've downloaded, you can bring an image up from there. I'm going to go to select just so you can see some of the different options and so forth. So you could bring in a direct link to with a URL to an image somewhere out on the web. You could do an image search. So just like we brought in that American Revolution kind of banner background, you could do a search and bring in an image that way, which I really love because a lot of times we don't have tons of images. And if we're talking about, coming back to what Steve said about that I believe that these are going to be linked up and approved to use, and I'm almost positive that's the case, then this just opens up a whole host of things for you to search for. You could bring in your own photos and you could go into Google Drive. So if you've got something saved in your drive. In this case, if I want to bring in a portrait of George Washington, I have searched my Google Drive, and I'm going to select this image and click Insert. So right down at the bottom right, if you see it, It says insert. So I've selected my image and I'm going to say insert. So you can see it's being linear at this point. It is putting things down the page. It added the first text box, then it added the next text box, and then it put the image underneath. So when you're doing it over here from the sidebar, I've noticed that it does that. But what if you're wanting to do some maneuvering and dragging your images around? I'm going to show you a little trick. Remember this text box here? When it puts it in, it's the whole width of the page. All right? Sometimes when you're dragging your images around, it can get tricky because look what just happened. I was trying to put it beside my text box and it did not like that at all. And it created this monster photo. And I'm like, that's not really what I wanted. If you click inside the text box, gosh, you can rearrange and resize. So if I wanted to say drag my text box there, and now I want to try to place my George Washington photo there, notice how much better it behaves. I can even drag my George photo over a little to the right and now enlarge that text box. And at a certain point, it'll show you. See, it didn't like that. I don't know if you can see it very well on your screen, but you'll see sort of these guidelines underneath. And when I try to put it there, it snaps it back one. So it doesn't like that. So it's either wanting you to put the text box to be, I guess you could say, at an end there, or I think it'll accept that. So now we have our text and our image beside each other. So I just wanted to show that is one way to do it. If I come up here and resize this text box, if I now put my cursor here in this area and I double click, let's try inserting an image that way. So let's say I want to do a Google image search and I'm looking for Mount Vernon. And I'll select this image. I'm going to go again and do insert. And now I have Mount Vernon. If I want to make it bigger, I can grab the edges and begin resizing until it suits me. Okay. Now I'm not saying at this point I have the greatest design going on. I do not. I don't even like these two images butting up against each other. But I'm really just trying to show you what you can do with your Google site. So far, we have these items lined out. We've done text, we've done image, we've done our banner, our title. So I'm going to go up here on this little toolbar that's kind of running across the top of the screen here, and I'm kind of wiggling my mouse across it. So out from that blue Publish button, you may see a little computer icon with a little smartphone over top of it. That's your preview. So let's take a look at our page and see how it appears. So this is how the page appears to somebody that's coming to visit it once you publish your web page and have that link out there for people to get to. Now at this point, this is where your design decisions will come into play. I personally would decide I don't like the two images against each other. I would put more text up here to break that up. But that is all about what you want to do. You may notice too in the bottom right corner, there's like these little symbols with an X. You can switch the view to see how does that appear on a smartphone? How does your website appear on a tablet? How does it appear on a computer? So you get different views, which I think is really, really great. But if I want to return to edit, I'm going to click that X and I'm going to return to my site. So now I'm ready to do more with my site. So next up, how do we create pages within our site? Right now we have one page. So if we go back over here to our right sidebar, remember I pointed out the 3 tabs, and we have been living on Insert tab for the moment. The Pages tab, if we click on that, is where we're going to go and we're going to add more pages. So when I click on Pages here, there is this plus sign down here at the bottom. So I'm going to circle my mouse to make sure you can see it nice and wide. But when we hover over the plus sign, you get 2 options. You get add a link, add a new page. All right? So let's go ahead and we'll just put a page in. So I'm going to click add a new page. We've got to name our page. So when somebody lands on the page, like when they click on it, what is it called? Well, in this case, we'll call this page Famous Americans in the Revolutionary War. All right? So I'm going to click done. And now I have a brand new page. And you can see the banner is traveling with it. So we have our home page. And now with the link. And I love how what Google Sites does is it automatically begins creating the navigation or the breadcrumbs and the pathway for all the different pages. Really, it's your navigation. So I'm going to click on Famous Americans in the Revolution. I could also click over here if I wished. And I'm going to be on this page. So I need to do some more things to this page. But I want to point out before I do anything on this page that there's another type of item you could add. Remember when I went down to the plus here to add a page? And I said new link is one of your items. You can also add a link that will appear in your navigation for the website. So if I click link, I can add an actual hyperlink. I can name it. So I give it a name for what the actual site, what's the website I'm sending the link to, what is it for, and I can click done. And look what happens now. You have your home page and your navigation. Here is the Famous Americans page, and then the next item in navigation is the link to that website. And it says it's redirecting me. It's going to take me to this website. And here is the site, Interactive American Revolutionary thing. We'll go ahead and close that though. So anyway, that's just kind of a quick little overview of inserting pages. You're going to come to pages. You've got your plus. You can do a page. You can do a link. But what do we want to add to our page? We can put some more things on here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on the Insert tab right here and click that. Remember, I can also do the shortcut and double click, and I have a couple items I can use here, but notice it's limited. It has text, as I mentioned before, upload images and so forth. However, what if we want to do a YouTube video? So let's add a YouTube video. And what you can do over here on the sidebar is you can scroll down. And right here, I'm going to wiggle my mouse again so you can see, you notice it says YouTube. If we click on YouTube, it's ready for you to do different things. You can browse by keyword, like a subject or whatever, or title. But in this case, you know, I said that's the Famous Americans page, so maybe I'm doing on Thomas Jefferson. So it's going to browse into all the YouTube videos that mention Thomas Jefferson and so forth. And if you want to browse and look, that's one way to do it. Realistically, though, most teachers are going to have either a title of a video or they're going to have a hyperlink. And either one of those will work in the search. If you had a title, you could put the title in. But if I had a direct hyperlink, and that's the kind of thing you're going to have in your lesson plans, then I can pull up exactly the video that I want to put on this page. I'm going to click and select it. Notice the blue bar that goes around. And then I have to make sure I also choose the button that says select, the one that's in blue. And now I have this very nicely embedded video on my page. Now I can come back up and remember the preview button, the little computer and smartphone looking thing. So what does it look like on my page? Okay, I may or may not like it. I may decide it needs to be bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and close on the X so I can go back to edit the site. I'm wiggling down here in the corner, just kind of pointing that out again. If I click on the video, notice you start getting those little blue corners and things, just like in that image earlier that I showed. And you can start making your video bigger if it's appropriate for you. You can center it more in the center of the page and so forth. If you get it on here and you're like, oh my goodness, I really don't like these up against each other, I'd like to add a text box. You can scroll back up, you can click text, and because my cursor happened to be up in this area, it popped the text box above the video. But I want to point out these little ellipses kind of, well, I guess it's not really ellipsis, it's more than 3 dots, but you can hover and then grab that, and you can drag it below the video, so you can rearrange these different sections on the page. You could drag the video around and so forth. Sometimes you have to drop it just right. There we go. All right, so I could break that up, I can add text and so forth if I want to. So anyway, so that's kind of the basics to adding a page. I'll go ahead and point this out while I'm here. You may have noticed when I hover over any of these areas, do you notice on the far left what happens? I'm going to move up to the text box area. See the little sort of artist palette There's a duplicate the section, so you could copy a section if you have a need to. You get some limited tools for emphasis. Google is good and bad. It's really great because it's super easy to use as far as Google Sites. The downside is if you're a really big, super serious person that loves to design, you may feel a little limited on the fonts because you don't really get a lot of options and some of the different things. But you have a couple of emphasis items you could do. So you notice this turns into like sort of a slight gray background. You could choose this and go with a blue background. But you can also do a custom image by either uploading or selecting an image. And I can do a search, and maybe I'll look for a blue pattern for my background. I'll use this one. I'm going to select, and you can actually add images, things to your background. The only thing to be aware, of course, is how busy it is, because that can become a problem as far as viewing it and things of that nature. But I could be like, this is my page, put it in, and if we go back up to preview, that's not too bad. Probably a little busy for me, but it does work. You can read the words on that pattern. Okay, I'm going to close it. So let's talk about adding a couple other things to your site. Next thing up is we're going to talk about adding a subpage. Now, we're going to go back to the Pages tab over here in the sidebar. So I'm going to go up here to this tab for Pages. I'm wiggling again so you can see where I am. I'm going to select Pages. And I want a subpage underneath my Famous Americans page. So in my course navigation, that's, it's going to be up there. It says Famous Americans in the Revolution. So see, here it is right there. But I want a subpage that lives underneath it. Maybe I want to take different Famous Americans and build out a page for each person. So if I go to the Famous Americans, and you may notice this time this is a vertical ellipsis. It has the 3 dots. You get some different options underneath. You could switch something. If you had a bunch of subpages, you could actually change them and make one of them become the home page, whatever. But for right now, I like my Famous Americans, and I want to put a subpage for George Washington. So I'm going to add subpage right here. So I'm wiggling a little bit so you see. So I'm going to click Add Subpage, and it says we'll name it, and I'm going to name it George Washington. Click Done. So here is my subpage. So I want to point out the difference in navigation. You have your home. You have your Road to Liberty, which was the link that goes out to the URL. You have your Famous Americans, but do you notice what happens when you hover? Not only do you hover and see George Washington, but you also have a drop-down arrow. And that's what the drop-down arrow is really showing you. As soon as you hover, and you may have noticed this on our NTI website, when underneath our learning tools and our different things, you may have noticed that drop-down menu that appears in the navigation. Well, those are subpages, and they're all grouped under that main header page. So now if I click on George Washington, I have the George page. So I'm going to come back over here to my right sidebar, and we're just about finished. And I'm going to show you how we can go back to insert, and there's a couple other things we can put and use on Google Sites. So the next thing I want to show you is how you can embed and insert items from Google Drive. I love this for sites. This is what I really love. So if I come over here to Google Drive, I can click here. I will also point out that you could go down here toward the bottom of the sidebar. You see that you could browse directly into Docs, directly into Slides, Sheets, Forms, and so forth. So you could go that route, or a lot of times, frankly, guys, I go straight into Drive. It's whatever you prefer. And you find the item you would like to bring into the page. So in this case, I'm going to do a search. You may have seen the search thing. I'm going to go back and show that to you again. So we have the little search icon here. So I'm going to click Search, and I'm going to paste in the item I'm looking for and hit Enter. And I'm looking for a slide deck. And so I have a slide deck on American Revolution. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm putting a disclaimer out there for anybody watching this video live on the web or the recording on the web. This is not my presentation. It was shared within Fayette County Schools. I kind of snagged it because I happened to come across it knowing I was going to do this theme for today's training. So I'm just saying now this is not my work. I could not find the name of the person who originally did it. But you guys know with the way you can make a copy of slides and docs and things like that, a lot of things get lost. But I'm saying right now this is not mine. It's very well done though. So I'm going to select it and click on it. And then I'm going to go to the bottom down here. I'm wiggling around the bottom right corner of the screen. And I'm going to select Insert. And now you have this embedded slide deck. You have the option to make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want to do. All right. So let's say I put it there and I'll say, well, I like that buffer. I need to drag something. I'm going to put some text. And just, check out these slides. You can tell it's getting toward the end of the year. I'm getting a little lazy on what I type in. I'm going to go to preview because I want you to see what it looks like now. So now what's great is when somebody visits your page, I mean, think about this in terms of you're designing a classroom website and you want to put a presentation or something out there for parents to have access to. They can stay within the screen, and if I click and I'm going to wiggle, I'm down in the bottom left of the actual slide presentation here, underneath the R part of Revolution. If I click that next arrow, people stay self-contained in the Google site because the slide presentation is embedded inside the page, and then they can just go through it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and close out so we can return to the editing area for our site. So in the bottom right over here, I'm going to click that X. So what else? What last couple things? We're now here at the very end. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and maybe I want to add another text box. And remember, and I'll show you real quickly, remember I pointed this out before, you get some basic things. You can do some really basic title, heading to make your text a little bigger. You've got bold and italicized. You have a place to put a hyperlink. So if you want to highlight some text, you can put your hyperlink in. But you also have the trash can. So let me do the trash can and delete it. And let's say I want to do that double click shortcut. Double click, okay? And I could add my text box that way. I just want to remind you of that. So I'm going to add a map now. So what can we do as far as adding a map to our page? Well, we're going to go back to our sidebar. We're living in the Insert tab here on the Insert tab. I'm going to scroll down. And you may see, actually we have two items here. We have calendar and map. First item I want to say is we're going to talk about map. You can include a map and embed it on your page. If you had an address, you could put that address on the page. So if I want to put the board office on our page with our map, I can do that. I could type in the address. It's going to pull up Fayette County Public Schools. Click select. It's going to pop it in, and then I can resize. As you all know, I've shown you how to resize by grabbing the edges and so forth. But I want to show you the other option for map. And sometimes what I do is I'll make things kind of smaller depending on the way I want to design my page. I went a little crazy. It's out of control. Sometimes it'll do that. I don't know if it's a laggy Wi-Fi or what. But if I want to put another map in, I can go back to map. Now, time before we did a search. So you could search something. So if you're wanting to put a link to your school's address so parents know, like for a classroom website, it's great. But you may have also noticed the tab here that says My Maps. If I click on My Maps, these are maps actually that you have created in literally Google My Maps. So if you've created a special map, and in this case I have one here called American Revolution Heroes, I can go ahead and select that, then click on the button that says select, the blue button. And this is a special map that I put together of people like where Patrick Henry lived, George Washington's Mount Vernon, Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross. And then if I want to, I can drag it up here and try to place it beside the other map so that they are more of a side-by-side. And then see if I can kind of get them equal here. All right. So just kind of showing you some ways you can manipulate and so forth when it comes to maps. If I want to scroll down the page, I mentioned before just a moment ago, calendar. You can bring in a calendar. So, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure. I don't want to pick something that has a lot of dates on it, but honestly, I don't even know what does. So I'm just going to pick something. We'll just go with Booker T and click Insert. And in this case, unfortunately, I picked one that didn't have any dates on it. But what would happen is it would show any dates. And I may have to go up to view here. Hold on. Let's go up to preview. Won't hurt us to look at our stuff anyway. So there's our slide deck, our 2 maps that we put in. And now we have a calendar, which is not showing up very well because it's been a while since I've been out there. Let's see. Oh. So let me switch it back. I should have clicked on it. Got it. All right. So I picked September 11th. I promise you, though, and I realize I did not queue up, put down an example so I could show you exactly what the calendar would look like. But we could switch to month, and let's see if I've got anything. Oh, we're lucky. Switch back to month. I have to move my Diet Mountain Dew out of the way. It was blocking that. So you can see that on September 27th, there was an assignment due. So if you wanted to bring in a Google Calendar of some kind, you could do that. And there's some other ways to do calendars that if you want it to be more colorful, and that's a separate conversation. So if you ever have that question or whatever, let us know, and we can work with you on that. Anyway, you can see there's the item right there. And if you click on it, the person that's viewing it can see what the item was. I'm going to go ahead and close it. I'm going to close this preview. And we are now at the tail end of our Google Sites. We have really just kind of one area left to do, and that's all about co-editors and publishing. Now, I didn't go through everything here. You can come back, you can explore on buttons and dividers and so forth. They're just some different options. You may have noticed the layouts. Also, too, guys, you have some very simple themes that you can select from to change the way your site appears. It may change some fonts. You'll have some color choices, some font choices. But, for example, if I switch to Aristotle here, it'll put that line underneath. Then I can choose a different color. I can even do a custom color with a hex code for any of you that know about hex codes and how you can pick out exactly the color you want. And I have some very limited choices, as you see. You get 3 choices of font. Beauty of Google Sites and the downfall of Google Sites, depending on how you feel about it. I like it. It's nice because of the simplicity. So if I want to change this to the classic font, notice how it changes George Washington in appearance. It does change the font for the site itself. All right? So the last thing we're going to do. Let's say you're ready to release this puppy out in the world. You're proud of it. It's ready to go. Your students maybe have created their own portfolio, or maybe you had them do a presentation on some type of content topic for your classroom and they made a site. Regardless, 2 things. How do you add somebody to come in and edit with you on the site to be able to access it? Think about that in terms of a team of teachers if you wanted a group of people to work together. So you can come in and add specific people to be able to edit. You could do a student. So it's one way for a teacher to set up. You can set up sites and then be connected to the students so that you can always see what's going on. Let them be editor though. So I'm going to add Addison Legg. Notice it defaults to editor, but you can change what their rights are. Typically speaking, if you're into this that you're sharing, you want those people to edit. That's why you have them there. And then when you're ready, you can put a message in and say, hey, I've added you to the site. I want you to help me, or not. And then you click send. All right, so I can click send, and that person will get a notification saying they had been invited to come and be an editor here. Last of all is publishing. So you see the purple publish button. It is there, but I want to show you a couple settings. Just kind of point these things out real quick. We've got some, and we don't need to know this right now. I just want to show you there's some things here that if you want to play around later and look, they are there. But the main thing is here, I also have the ellipses where you can see some version history of your site. Once again, you come back, you play with that. But the main thing right now, what we're going to do is click the publish button. So I'm going to click publish. Try again. All right. He just needed a moment to think. So here we have our publish button, and you can see that's exactly, remember what I said about what you named your actual site, not the title of a page, but the actual site. This is what we have in that upper left-hand corner. You probably can see it a little bit. Of course, it's faded out because of the pop-up box. but you could change your web address. This is literally going to be the web address for your site, okay, at this point. You could change it if you wish. You can do it here. It will change it also at the top left of the screen. Who can view your site? Is it anyone at Fayette County? You've got to be cautious about this because you want to be sure that who gets to see your website. If your website's only for students, it's fine if it's Fayette County Public Schools. But what if you want it to be for parents? Well, parents don't have Fayette County emails. So it says publish site at Fayette County Schools. So you can choose here. Notice I'll do that again, the drop down arrow. You can switch it to public. And now the link that's generated is going to be a public link, and say done. And you can even request that public search engines do not display your site, so those web crawlers don't bring it up in a search. That's a personal preference depending on what you want. Who can view? You see it says anyone can view my site, and then that's how you would go back and change it, is through the manage button. But let's say I'm ready to go, and I say, yep, I'm ready to publish. So I'm going to publish my site. And now, on the little toolbar area up here, you may have noticed undo, redo, and so forth. There's the preview. There's that editor button where you add people to work with you. But we also have this little chain link looking item that says copy publish site link. This is the live link to your site. So that when you click that, this is the pathway, the name of your URL. You copy that link. If I go to a new tab and paste that in, it should take me to my published website. And I just realized something that I should not have done there. Hold on, I grabbed the wrong link when I did that. And that's kind of good that that happened, all right? Because when I did that, it grabbed the George Washington, the direct link to the George Washington page. I wasn't thinking about that I wasn't on that, so I'm going to make sure I'm on my home page. I'm going to grab my link, and this should be the correct one now. So let's try that again. Yes, and at the end of it, it says home, so that's the home page, that landing page for the site. I just happened to grab that other one, okay? And so here is our site. We can click on Famous Americans in the Revolution. Here's our lovely page. Yes, I know I haven't exactly made the most beautiful thing. If I hover over the drop-down arrow, here's my George Washington page. With my slide deck and my maps and my calendar. Sometimes the calendar takes just a moment to load. And it popped it back to Wednesday. So it's already switched that back. Go back to month. Here we are in the month of May. So the user would be toggling back through. It's going to land on that. But they have the tools to be able to toggle through week, days, that type of thing. And we're back to September, where that one particular item. Obviously, if you're embedding your Google Calendar for like your Google Classroom, you're using it. I mean, otherwise you would not have it up there. Don't be like me. But anyway, that is it as far as covering the basics that you need to know for building a site and certainly for tackling the test for Level 1 certification.